Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from India, Mr. Deepak Kapoor. Deepak, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Deepak is the founder of Begin India think tank and the co-founder of Business Process Industry Association of India. So, Deepak, before we start talking about Begin India and business process outsourcing, tell me a little bit about your own journey in brief.
Well, Delhi boy, brought up in Delhi NCR. After my schooling, I chose not to go to college. I did do my college, but I went, correspondence, Delhi University. I wanted to work from the beginning. So after my class 12th, I have been working, and I think it was a fantastic decision. It gave me a lot of, and I truly believe in experiencing life. So it gave me a couple of more years at experiencing life. And of course, part-time and evenings and weekends, I did study enough to escape through.
Yeah.
So
for a lot of my viewers and listeners who are very, very young, how important is college education?
Well, you made it very specific. I personally believe more in learning and applying that learning. I mean, you go back a few hundred, a few thousand years. Where was college education? Where did the wheel come from?
Correct.
Where did the entire concept of currency come from? Nobody taught them. There were no degrees. There was no masters in finance or economics. There was no London School of Economics. So I think that if there is a need, and if the intellect does permit you to look at that need, and there are solutions, to that extent, I'm not underscoring the importance of going to college. I did go to college. I mean, in a hybrid way.
Yeah.
I did study, did my academics. But I think it is more important to know things rather than to go to somebody and learn them.
Correct. Okay.
And of course, I think I would give learning, say 70%, and academic learning, say 30%.
Fair. Well,
that's my personal view.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Begin India think tank. Tell me a little bit about this venture. And does the word begin stand for anything, or is it what it actually means at its start?
It stands for quite a bit to me, at least, personally. So from the late 90s, which was 1997, 1998, and for your younger listeners, I might sound a little ancient from a different civilization altogether, but I think you can relate to those times when, BPO, IT were just flourishing. So I was very fortunate to get into the BPO domain at a very, very tender age. And, from there on, I did run call centers. And long story short, we lost extremely heavy. I'm a little loath to share numbers, but by any standards, extremely heavy losses. So that happened in 2013. And, it took me a couple of years, litigation around the globe, wherever we were present, to settle things. Of course, the way things happen, when you are multi-location. And Begin India was, by 2016, I was fairly clear. 2016 ended, of course, I dealt with all the issues that come with, the demise of a business and then post operative care, if I may say. So after 2016, I just saw that there was a lot happening in technology, and I've always been very enthusiastic about and also enthused by advancement of technology, and more so the use of it. So I think technology per se is useless. If you don't put something to use, a tool is useless. So I looked at a lot of things and educated myself on what cryptocurrency was. And 2016 were formative years. So by 2019, I was very clear that, this is something that I need to be in. it had become important in many aspects, both positive and negative, and something had to be done about it globally. And fortunately, so for me, I think the way things have turned out, there is a lot being done today on both ends of the spectrum, the minus and the plus. So, Big in India was a new beginning after having run a fantastic course of almost 18 plus years in the call center business. Co-founding the association, which has now become, I mean, everybody knows the importance of BPO and IT from India. So
Correct.
we were on the BPO side, and it was a pretty powerful space to be in. It still is to a large extent, and contributing towards foreign exchange earnings in many ways for the country. So bright moments.
Sure.
And a new beginning, after everything went off. And so that's the long story of the word begin. And I thought it was very apt. I was beginning again, doing something absolutely new that I hadn't done before. It was a new thing to the world itself. So that is
interesting. No, thank you. Thank you for telling me. But, you also say you're a think tank. So what are some of the areas that Begin India looks at, and what is the kind of work that you're doing as a think tank?
Okay, two quick areas, two initiatives, which the areas are part of the title of both. One is the India Cryptocurrency Initiative, of course, towards crypto. And second is International Ayurveda Alliance towards Ayurveda. Now, India Cryptocurrency Initiative, we've done a very, how would I just put it, back of the scenes discussions with a lot of policymakers, people who are stakeholders, a little less so with the industry, because the industry has been questioned by many in many different ways. And, I choose to differ with the crypto industry a little more than I choose to agree with them. So more points of disagreement with them. Right. So you can call me biased, but I was always biased towards things like policy, governments, policymakers, compliances, regulation, and so on and so forth. So, being responsible on the crypto side. The second initiative is International Ayurveda Alliance, where we are looking at reviving in a very different sense, in a very operational sense. We are reviving, Ayurveda for the world.
Okay.
Because everybody knows that Ayurveda comes from India. It is Indian cultural heritage. It is ancient Indian medicine. But I think we're going to want to take it to the world. And almost 2 decades of having serviced, global economies in call center business, and knowing how to market something sitting here over a phone call. I thought it was a challenge that we could take up reasonably confidently. And we have a lot of fantastic organizations, very large number now, very accomplished people in the contemporary Ayurveda space, and of course the older ones who are alive with us. We've always had good relationships abroad and with a lot of embassies of countries that in the Western world and the developed world. So it's all coming together on the Ayurveda front, and fortunately, it's all working for us very positive.
Right. Very interesting. But what I found very interesting was that for a think tank to be doing cutting edge technology like cryptocurrency and Ayurveda, which is ancient Indian or Indic science, is there, in your view, any connection that you see between this ancient knowledge and the technology? Because a lot of resources go into a think tank when you do these kind of work, different kinds of work.
Interestingly, I think the answer lies in your opening statement / question that you've just put up. You mentioned in the second part of your statement, just before you put up the question, that ancient Indian medicinal science. So I'll pick that word, Indian and science, 2 words. I'll just set them aside and I'll just connect it to cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, you said, is contemporary, futuristic technology. Technologies we all know come from science.
Correct.
That's the output of various outputs of science. So the technology part, and since cryptocurrency has such connotations in we see now after so many years, now we see that the world is realizing the negative aspects of crypto, and a lot of scams are coming forward. A lot of anti-national activity across the globe, across countries. So that Indian part comes in the context of national security and nation building, and towards doing something for the country, so that we keep safe. The Of course, the sovereign currency, anti-terror funding, money laundering, all these things. These are areas which we function greatly in. Contrary to a lot of when people talk to me, they think we work with exchanges and trading. No, we don't. So we look at forensics, which is quite a new science. Most people in India haven't been able to do that. Look at it. So we concentrate on bringing that knowledge to India, and of course Ayurveda. Of course, it is again Indian in nature. So India is a common factor.
I understand. But what I've been on several think tanks as a member. And one of the biggest challenges a lot of think tanks face is how to get their recommendations moved into a policy framework. I'd love to get your perspective on how you are doing this.
Well, very early on, since after class 12th, I started working. Some very good people who advised me very early on in my life. Of course, there have been successes and failures, but I think I developed the ability to handle both success and failures very early on, and I think that is one of the biggest fortunate things that I come to my life. So when you say how do we do it, I have only 2 boxes in my checklist in anything that I do. So I've simplified my life through the years. If first box, is it compelling? Second box, is it meaningful? If I can check these 2 boxes, and so can anybody else, I will guarantee you that 8 out of 10 times, if it is thought, the answers are thought, and you check your boxes conscientiously, with logic, I will guarantee anybody 80% success rate on anything that you do with these 2 boxes checked. So these 2 boxes need to be checked. Now, when it is compelling and it is meaningful, you don't have to try very hard. You just have to put your point, meticulously across to the other person in simple language and tell them, what are the resulting benefits of doing something, and these are the reasons, and these are the compelling, benefits. So that's fortunately been slightly easy for us. And we don't rely on academic data and white papers. That we do a lot. But we rely on them not more than 25 to 30%. We rely on actual, measurable, on the ground, physical action that you can see, feel, think, talk about. So, when you do that, it's not difficult for you to put across your word to anybody. Why they should listen to you in whatever you are telling them to listen. So, in those terms, I think we maybe have been, fortunate to, be a little more successful than the way you portrayed it.
Fantastic. Well, that's great work. That's really great work. So let's now talk about the Business Process Industry Association of India. Tell me a little bit about what are the objectives of this association, because
this was formed very early on, and just to put a disclaimer, I've not been very active in the last 6, 7, 8 years, maybe. I'm not with the association. I branched out on my own. In fact, I work alone almost. When I say alone, I mean a little alone a few years back, and then since beginning I think tank, through the think tank. Now the objectives were very clear. Very early in the 2000s, absolutely, the starting of the 2000 decade. We were doing very well in terms of the world looking at us. In terms of cost arbitrage, cheap labor, body shop.
Yeah.
And I think every one of us fell prey to that. Of course, I mean, we said, okay, there's a lot of young people here. English has been taught in schools for, how many decades. And we will get access to English-speaking kids, especially in North India. Because when I say North India, I say it because the Western English-speaking world finds North Indians a little more neutral in accent to other parts of the country. So that's the reason you would see that the concentration of mainly voice-based BPOs has been in northern India rather than South India, wherein the intellect, of course, is as good or better because they make the technology on which BPOs function.
Correct.
We need technology to do that. So the aim was to take as much advantage in terms of the initial aim was to build as much employment as possible. And I think STPI gave our industries, so thankful to the government then that, they gave us tax benefits exemption for a number of years uh, in terms of, getting foreign exchange and creating employment because they knew that, this industry, if encouraged, would create a lot of employment. So I think employment was number one priority for everybody. And of course, when money flows into a country, no government would say no to it. And especially if it is foreign exchange, if it was, the currency of choice, which is the dollars and then the pounds and then later on the euros. Yeah. So these were basic issues why, we all came together and said, let us get together and give India a name in terms of BPOs rather than just, companies working in. So, we came together.
Very interesting. But over the last 20 years, and I'm not an expert in the business process outsourcing industry, but I have seen, from what used to be called call centers to BPOs to KPOs and whatever else, a lot of other countries have got into the same space. Well, India, I think, is attempting to move into a higher space. I'd love to get your perspective on what next for India, because this also employs a very large number of people.
It does. And the number of employment has gone down, actually.
Okay.
You're very right. The advent of technology, chats, messaging, then IVR. IVR is a big thing as we speak today in the current context. AI is coming up, and but we always knew, that smaller nations who were competing with us, Philippines, a lot of other nations, close to, say, Hawaii, Mexico, Colombia. And we got some good competition later on from Greece, Argentina, Brazil, even though people really don't know about it. So these three countries, unknown to most, they gave competition even to Philippines in banking. They were good at that. So yes, we did come across a lot of competition. And I think the world progresses every day. And we need to be mindful of how it is progressing and we need to react.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's no point in fooling ourselves if we don't. Well, and yes, the world will move towards more automation, more artificial intelligence. But I think I think one of the most famous statements, with respect to Chat GPT and AI, which is, I think, the current in thing, and that's the reason I mentioned the name, is that, people say that professionals will not be replaced by Chat GPT in this context or AI, but professionals who do not use AI will be replaced by professionals who would.
Correct.
And I think to a certain extent, to a fairly large extent, I think this is going to be true. So what do we do? We have a fantastic pool of young people. Now, if you very nicely, noticed and related, on the one side we are doing crypto, and the other side we are doing Ayurveda. One thing that is not really going to change is that humans are going to have lives. We might find ways to live a little longer, a little healthier, but we will always need clean air. We will always need water. We will always need food to eat. We will always need recreation. We will always need people who are around us, the loved ones.
Right.
We need to take care of them, housing, etc. So all these things will possibly be, I think, even a century later, they will still be. Banking will be there. We used to have, say, 200, 300 years back, maybe even more. We had money lenders who used to take, undue advantage also sometimes.
Sure.
And today we have banks, there's regulation. Tomorrow we'll have some other form of funding.
Correct.
So these things will remain. We need to be a little smart about what will remain in the future and extrapolate our today's efforts into the future to see that we are future ready with things that will remain in the future.
Very interesting. Wonderful. So my last question to you now, Deepak, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation. What would you say, based on your own incredible journey and all your learnings, what would you say are 3 lessons you would like our viewers and listeners to take away from your own journey and from our conversation?
I think the first thing that I've learned one needs to do is to leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody way older than me told me when I was in my late teens or possibly early 20s. And I still remember this after so many years, after 25, 27, 28 years or so. I still remember it almost verbatim. I'll try to recreate that for the benefit of everybody else. He said that leverage, opportunity, and power are all temporary phenomena. At best, we get a chance to exercise these things.
Yeah.
We do not own them. The moment we stop believing in this concept or forget it, our demise begins.
Okay.
And I think it's been. I mean, I've seen it fall true in real life. That's the first learning. Second learning is, I think I turn to nature for every big crisis that I've had in life. How would nature respond? Now, everybody knows that we have a unique DNA.
Yes.
So nature intended us, you, me, and everybody else. I mean, there are billions of people.
Yeah.
And each one is different. Look at the beauty of it. So nature intended us to be different. So when you do something in life, try for it. Because nature intends for you to have your own space.
Correct.
And I truly believe that, we were born as individuals by a mandate of nature, and we should continue to do that, till we are here with nature.
Sure.
The third thing is grit and audacity. Very cliche. A lot of people disagree with it. But I've seen this true with a lot of people who've succeeded and gone through a lot of tough times and crises. The cliched saying is, what gets you into audacity might get you into a crisis that you can only get out of by even more audacity. As one of the presidents of the US said, if you're going through trouble, go through it. So that, I think, you need to carry your momentum and a lot of courage and conviction and grit. I think for entrepreneurs, one thing that nobody can give them or take away from them is grit. They will create it themselves and they will give away any amount of it only themselves. It is theirs for using it, taking it, and giving it. So I think that is one resource for every entrepreneur, that nobody else except for them has a choice in how they exercise that. And I think it is a very valuable thing.
Very interesting. And on that note, Deepak, and your 3 incredible lessons, the first one was, you talked about leverage, and you said leverage, opportunity, and power are all linked to economics, and that's so true. Second, you said was that, whenever there's a challenge, you always turn towards nature and think of how nature would have responded, because we are all different. And third one, you said how important it is to have grit and audacity. You also spoke about your 2 check boxes, which were, is it compelling and is it meaningful? Thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey, about Begin India and the Business Process Industry Association of India. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And it's been an honor. I've seen the kind of accomplished individuals who get to share this platform, and I think I'm fortunate to have been one of them. And I wish you much greater success in what you're doing and an exponential increase in your viewership. Thank you so much again, Ashutosh.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.